never thought a quiet community would become the center of one of the strangest battles of my life, and I certainly never imagined that standing up for something as simple as my own land would turn into a conflict that stretched on for months, filled with arguments, accusations, court hearings, and neighbors whispering like something scandalous had just happened. But that's exactly what happened when my HOA decided that their idea of a community spirit mattered more than my rights as a property owner. They accused me of damaging the neighborhood, harming unity, and blocking progress, all because I refused to let them build on land that legally, unquestionably, undeniably belonged to me. And the more I explain it, the crazier it still sounds. It began on a morning so normal, it almost feels ironic now. I woke up to the low rumble of engines, the kind you hear when someone is moving heavy equipment. At first I didn't think much of it. Construction happened occasionally in the neighborhood. But the sound kept growing louder until it felt like it was right outside my window. When I stepped outside, I saw a line of construction trucks, a bulldozer pushing soil, and a crew marking the ground with spray paint. For a few seconds, I honestly thought they were at the wrong address. Then I realized the horrifying truth. They were inside my property line. Not near it, not next to it, not dangerously close. They were inside the space I owned, space I paid taxes on, space I had plans for. I walked straight toward the crew supervisor and asked what they were doing. He barely glanced up from his clipboard and said, like it was the most normal thing in the world, that they were expanding the community center parking. HOA approved it, he said. HOA signed off. HOA planned it. HOA decided it would benefit everyone. I pointed at the boundary markers I personally paid to have installed and told him they had crossed into my land. He shrugged as if private property were optional. He said, take it up with the HOA, as if they were above the law, as if their approval magically dissolved property lines. I told every worker to stop immediately and leave my land. Some hesitated, some looked embarrassed, and some clearly didn't care, but they finally pulled back their equipment. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. That evening, I received an email so passive-aggressive it could have won awards. According to the HOA, I had obstructed community development, interfered with approved neighborhood improvements, and my behavior reflected a lack of community spirit. They even suggested mandatory mediation, as if the issue wasn't trespassing but my attitude. Over the next week, things escalated unbelievably fast. HOA board members came knocking at my door pretending to be reasonable while demanding I reconsider. They acted like they were doing me a favor by allowing a construction on my land. At one point, one of them said, "Your land is part of the community. You should be proud to contribute." I told him contributing wasn't the issue. Being stolen from was. They didn't like that answer. Soon after, they sent me an official notice. They were suing me. According to them, I was harming the neighborhood, blocking progress, disrupting unity, and killing community spirit. Imagine being told you're killing community spirit because you don't want a parking lot built where your future greenhouse is supposed to go. Court day finally arrived, and the tension in the room was so thick, it felt like the air itself was waiting for drama. Their lawyer spoke first, giving a speech filled with emotional phrases about togetherness, cooperation, and how my refusal had caused emotional injury to the community. He talked like they were building a hospital for children, not a parking lot they didn't even have the right to place. When it was my turn, I didn't need grand speeches. I placed my deed on the table, my surveys, my maps, photos of their trucks breaking into my soil, tax receipts, everything documented, everything clear, everything legal. The judge flipped through the papers silently, then asked the HOA president a simple question: whose land is it? The president shifted, hesitated, swallowed hard, and finally said the word he had been avoiding. His. The judge didn't even bother listening to anything else after that. He dismissed the case instantly and warned the HOA that any future attempt to build on private property would result in heavy fines and possible legal consequences. The HOA lawyer looked embarrassed. The president looked humiliated. And for the first time since the battle started, I felt like I could breathe again. I walked out of that courtroom feeling victorious, but the story didn't end there. Something changed in the neighborhood after that. Neighbors who had always avoided conflict began approaching me quietly. Some thanked me, Some admitted the HOA had bullied them for years. One older woman told me she had been fined 3 times because her flowers were too bright. Another said that HOA tried to force him to repaint his mailbox because it was too unique. That's when I realized something important. It wasn't just about my land, it was about control. And I had pushed back at a level they never expected. The HOA kept their distance after that. They avoided my street, avoided eye contact, avoided any interaction that might remind them of their defeat. Their monthly newsletter stopped talking about community spirit and started focusing on more realistic topics like trash pickup and meeting reminders. They didn't dare step near my property line again. And as for me, I finally started the greenhouse project I had been planning all along. Every time I planted something new, every time I saw a seed sprout, it felt like reclaiming something they tried to take. But the real lesson came much later, when I reflected on everything that happened. People always talk about community spirit like it's this magical thing that comes from rules and regulations and committees. But that's not what community is. Community is respect. Community is listening. Community is acknowledging boundaries, literal and figurative. Community spirit isn't something HOA can enforce. You can't vote it into existence. You can't threaten people into feeling it. And you definitely can't build a parking lot on someone else's land and call it unity. They accused me of killing community spirit, but all I did was defend my rights. If anything, their actions showed how fragile their idea of community was. Because true community doesn't fall apart when one person says, "This is mine." True community understands that personal rights matter, fairness matters, consent matters. Consent matters, and respect is the foundation of everything. Today, I still live on that land. I walk across it knowing I fought for it. I watch my greenhouse plants grow. I sit on my porch in the evenings knowing that HOA will never try something like that again. And sometimes when I see neighbors strolling past with a peaceful smile or stopping to chat, I can't help but think, maybe I didn't kill community spirit at all. Maybe I saved it.